Today, I have a Story Connections post that is a bit different than most. First, it's different because I'm doing the narrating of the introduction portion. And then because I've got some book news to share before I get to the picture and a story excerpt part of the post. You see, I have a new book available for pre-order, but there's a short window of time during which you can get the book early and for free. All you have to do is be subscribed to one of my reader communities, whether on Patreon, Substack, or my blog. If you are already a subscriber to one of those places, you should have received an email or a notification via an app on either Friday or Saturday with a link to where you could download a copy of None So Accomplished as Mary. It's the sequel to How to Marry an Accomplished Lady, and it's part of my Sweet Extras collection. Sweet Extras are always offered as free downloads to my reader community for a period of time before the release of the book. This time, you have until March 31st to download your copy. So if you missed that email, or if you'd like to subscribe to one of my reader communities, which means you didn't get the email, you can find the post where the download link is located on my blog under the subscribers only post menu option in the Substack chat or the ebook downloads collection on Patreon. You have just over half a week left before that download link expires. If you prefer to purchase your books from a favorite ebook retailer, I'll make sure that there is a link for where you can find it in the description of this video. Release day for that book is April 4th, 2025. If you've already read the book because you got it as soon as you got your email on Friday or Saturday and you've read it already, and you're the sort of person who likes to leave a rating or a review, there are two places that I know for sure, there are probably many more, but two places that you can leave early reviews and ratings are BookBub and Goodreads. And I will put links to the book on both those places in the description of this video. Okay, just one more thing before we get to the picture and excerpt part. None So Accomplished as Mary is best enjoyed when read after you've read How to Marry an Accomplished Lady, which is in my Sweet Possibilities collection. And that story is best enjoyed after you've read An Accomplished Lady of the Best Sort, which is a tea time tale. In case you need to pick up either one of those books, I've added a 50% off coupon on them at Smashwords until April 5th, 2025, which is the day after release day for None So Accomplished as Mary. And that coupon will be applied automatically when you go to checkout, so you don't have to remember a coupon code. It'll just be applied automatically. I will leave links for How to Marry an Accomplished Lady and An Accomplished Lady of the Best Sort on Smashwords in the description box. Okay, are you still with me? I know, it's a lot of info, but now let's look at that painting. I selected this image because, as you will see, None So Accomplished as Mary begins at a ball. And the ladies in the painting are preparing for a ball and having a fabulously fun time. That attitude matches with this book perfectly, since it continues the lighthearted, feel-good romance mood established in the two preceding books in this trio. In this story, Colonel Fitzwilliam is dead set against knowingly falling prey to a matchmaker's scheme. However, that doesn't mean that he can't unknowingly be captured by a bit of cunning and a tantalizing riddle to solve. The chapter that Christopher, the authorized voice replica that I use for all of my audiobook narrations for Leenie, that chapter that he's just going to read to you in a minute, you will see that That scene takes place just as such an entertaining journey to happily ever after for Mary and the Colonel is about to begin. I hope you enjoy it.
Chapter 1. Colonel Richard Fitzwilliam straightened his sleeves and lined up the white buttons on his white waistcoat into a neat row, while all the while conducting a rousing discussion inside his head about the futility of attempting to avoid his mother's demands that he marry. It was likely the most interesting debate he was going to have tonight. He was not sure why his mother insisted that he attend these functions, or why his father supported her in her demands. There was no hope of finding a wife, such as he would find worthy of having, amid the music, dancing, and inane topics of discussion ventured upon in a well-decorated setting such as this. He cast a glance around the Bowerman's ballroom. It was brightly lit with a handsome chandelier as the focal point of the lighting scheme. An intricate arabesque design decorated the floor. Floral arrangements and plants were not in short supply. They had spared little expense in preparation for the night. Indeed, it was as opulent a room as one might hope to find on the other end of an invitation, and it appeared that talk about the labour which had gone into the grandeur of the evening would be spread far and wide amongst the people who mattered to a hostess such as Mrs. Bowerman was, for there was a sizable crowd already gathered, and it seemed to grow with each breath he took. Low voices rumbled from here and there, while titters and giggles punctuated the flow of speech in a higher register. Servants scampered as unobtrusively as they could, while still keeping things progressing as they should. He shook his head. For all the preparation that had gone into a night of attempting to marry one's daughter to another's son, he was certain that not one of the ladies present were the sort to eagerly help him ferret out information about a ne'er-do-well. There was far too much lace and too many ruffles for his liking. However, simplicity never seemed to be the height of fashion at one of these events. His lips curled in disgust of their own accord. "Oh, do try to look at least half as pleasant as you normally do," his mother chided him from where she stood at his elbow. "You must marry." "I am still unconvinced that it is a necessity," he retorted. At least, it was not necessary that he tie himself to just any bit of fluff, who could wear a ball gown and remember the steps to a cotillion. "It is as your mother says," his father inserted with a chuckle. "It is best just to accept that she is right and get on with things." They had covered this same vein of thought on the carriage ride to the ball. It was a thought that found him barely catching a growl. He was his own man. He did not need to be ferried around town by his mother, and yet that is precisely what his father had demanded must be done. He pulled his shoulders back, gave a sharp nod of his head to his father, and began his march around the periphery of the ballroom. He would put in a good show of attempting to follow his mother's orders before he sought the refuge of the card-room. He was in quite a dour mood this evening. Normally he could tolerate soirees and his mother's prodding with a laugh and a tease, but not tonight. For some reason, the pleasure of seeing and being seen was less inviting than he remembered. It was not that he disliked dancing or merrymaking or being part of society. He sighed. He just did not enjoy it as he used to do. How long had it been since he had found a function such as this to be entertaining? He nodded to a gentleman who acknowledged him by name, but he did not pause his march. He was not going to be knowingly pulled into some trap to see the man's sister married to the second son of Lord Matlock. Now what was he thinking before the interruption? Ah, yes, he had been wondering when he had last enjoyed himself at a ball. It had to have been at Netherfield. There had been a handful of young ladies to entertain and keep safe, a parson whose ridiculousness had been much like a bit of bad theatre, and then there had been a fellow to keep himself from running through. His lips curled upwards as he remembered dragging George Wickham from the dance floor and threatening him most thoroughly if he even approached Georgiana, Richard's cousin and charge. Yes, that had been a most entertaining evening. He sighed, and some of the tension in his shoulders relaxed. If only there was some miscreant to keep watch over tonight. He chuckled softly to himself until he realized that he had almost completed a full circuit of the ballroom. Then his smile faded, and that knot between his shoulder blades returned. He would have to dance at least one set with someone, and the time had come to make a selection. "I say, old man," a familiar voice caught his attention, "you should not come to balls if you do not wish to dance." Richard chuckled and turned to his good friend Will Headley. "For most that is true. However, if your mother is Lady Matlock, you attend whether you wish to or not." Headley clapped him on the shoulder. "You know my sister is in town." "Is she? I thought she'd gotten married." His friend nodded. "She is here, and so is her betrothed. The wedding will take place at Christmas, since that is when the betrothal was announced, and Lucy thought it would be the height of romance to be married on the same day." He shook his head at the absurdity of such a thought. "Females," he said, as if that one word explained everything, and until Richard had stayed at Netherfield almost a year ago now, he would have agreed. Females were odd, he would have said. They did not think as he thought a person should, he would have concurred. But then he drew a breath and released it slowly. He had met one female who was not at all as the others seemed to be. "I hear your cousin is married," Headley continued. "No, she's not married yet," Richard replied, "but we are hopeful. Indeed, if Anne were here tonight and so was a certain fellow, there might actually be a bit of fun to be had at this soiree." But the last he'd heard from his mother about his cousin was that she had been sniffling 2 days ago, so it was unlikely that she would be allowed to attend a ball. His companion laughed. "I was talking about Darcy." Richard's ears grew warm. "Ah, yes, Darcy is married and happily so." "That is the report I have heard. And—" His voice trailed off as he nodded toward the door to the ballroom. "It appears the reports are true," he concluded in a near whisper. "She is lovely." This was said as if it were an afterthought or as something that was not truly supposed to have been said. Richard straightened. "Mrs. Darcy is amongst the loveliest ladies I have met." He gave Headley a hard glare for having the audacity to comment on the beauty of his cousin's wife, and then allowed his eyes to finally follow the sightline of his friend. He sucked in a quick breath. "Mary," he whispered. "What was that?" his friend asked. "Who is Mary?" Only the most interesting female one could ever meet, but that was not what he planned to tell his friend. "Miss Bennet is Mrs. Darcy's sister," he said instead. "I did not know she was joining them at Darcy House." He frowned. Why would Darcy not tell him that Mary would be visiting? "Miss Bennet? Is that the name I should use when asking her for a dance?" Headley asked. "She's lovely," he chuckled. "As is Darcy's wife. But I was not commenting on the beauty of a lady who is already taken. I also have a mother and sister who would like me to marry sooner rather than later." Richard's eyebrows drew together over a scowl. "You want to dance with Miss Bennet? What happened to Miss Mullins? Your names were nearly one and the same last season, and still at a house party this past summer from what I have been told." "She is not here," the words were said curtly, "and we are not married or even betrothed. Therefore I am free to dance with as many pretty young ladies as I wish." "Did something go awry?" Richard asked as he kept step with his friend. "Yes, as a matter of fact it did. Now, if you would do your duty as my friend and introduce me to Miss Bennet, perhaps I can begin a season of putting the past behind me." "I am sorry to hear it," Richard whispered, "but I will not let you play with Miss Bennet's heart to soothe your own." Headley huffed. "I am not the sort of person who plays with hearts." "I did not think you were, but you have just suffered a large loss, and as is true in such cases, the mind and heart can be easily swayed." They were mere steps away from Darcy now, so Richard kept his voice low. Headley stopped walking and placed a hand on Richard's arm, drawing his full attention. "Is she yours?" he whispered. "Mine? Mary?" he whispered back in surprise. Headley nodded. Richard swallowed and shook his head as he drew a deliberate breath. "Then introduce me." Will tipped his head the tiniest bit in the direction of Darcy. Richard turned to look at Mary, who smiled at him. Headley was correct. She looked lovely tonight in her simple lavender gown with only a few touches of lace and no ruffles. Her hair was styled softly and adorned with a small but sparkling comb. She was innocence personified, which he knew was an intoxicating fragrance to many gentlemen. She would not lack for dance partners, that was for certain. Would they not be surprised to discover that while she might look as sweet and docile as any debutante might, she was clever, and not at all without a sharp edge or two? My, she was perfect, was she not? He shook his head and blew out a soft breath. She was not his, but as he prepared to make his friend known to her, something in the vicinity of his heart began to wish that she was. This has been an excerpt from None So Accomplished as Mary. Thank you for listening to this story connection. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please help other readers find it by liking this video and sharing it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you'll know whenever I upload another video. The 2025 copyright for None So Accomplished as Mary is held by Leenie Brown. All rights reserved. The narrators for this video have been Leenie and Christopher, who is an authorized voice replica made available by the voice actor through the Elevenlabs library.